you very much, friends and sisters and brothers. I couldn't help but notice Peggy Nash's reaction when you used the word boss. She just kind of looked at me and laughed. Well, welcome to a typical caucus meeting situation. Of course, that's because what we do in our caucus is we collaborate. We're not really a very hierarchical organization, hence we don't use things like whips. We use things like persuasion and building bridges and trying to understand one another better. And we think that's how you build a country. And by the way, it's also how we're going to save the gun registry. And we're going to get that fixed. But it is great to be in this little oasis of beauty by the water. This is an undiscovered jewel for most Torontonians, I'm sure. And I think the Legion would probably be very happy if more of us patronized this spot. And I can tell you I intend to do exactly that. My Legion's up on Pape Avenue, and we have a great Legion, but we don't have a view like this, I have to say. Folks, I'm really here to, first of all, thank you for all the work that you do. Here we're talking about volunteers, people who contribute their time, their energy, their money as they're able in order for us to have the excellent representation that we're able to get as a result of that work. And to celebrate the volunteers of our movement is something that's very, very important to me. We have thousands and thousands of people who are participating all across the country. We don't have the kind of money that the Conservatives would have, although we're getting closer, because more and more people, like we saw with Obama, more and more people are putting their little bit in because they want to make the change, and they understand that somebody's got to pay for those flyers, and if you can throw in $1 or $2 here, it's going to be helpful. And I'm sure somebody will be fundraising later today. It's not my job, but my job is to say thank you for everything you do. And the volunteers. I just met a wonderful new volunteer, remind me, Ramesh, who I said, how did you get started? And he says, well, I just walked into Peggy Nash's office, and because I wanted to work for change, and I was attracted to what Peggy was doing. And immediately he's out there canvassing, and I hear he's one of the star canvassers, and he's nonstop. So to people like Ramesh and everybody else who does that kind of work, in some cases, you've been doing it for years. When I see Irene over here, I know it's been a long time. And we've been at...
Since Confederation, yeah.
Since Confederation. And it is a lifelong commitment that we have the opportunity to make. And I want to pay tribute to my colleague, my sister, someone who has made a lifelong contribution and a lifelong commitment to achieving social justice and making a better world. And that's the next Member of Parliament, the former Member of Parliament from Parkdale High Park, Peggy Nash. Peggy, when she was in the House for that, I guess it was about 2.5 years, the contribution she made was extraordinary. She put legislation before the House of Commons to establish a national minimum wage to lift people out of poverty. That's called leadership. And when everybody said it couldn't be done, she started a campaign to prevent the sale of a Canadian company that was strategically vitally important to all of us, that was going to be bought by a major arms manufacturer out of the United States. It was a company that had developed the Canada arm as part of the space project, McDonald Detweiler it's called, out of British Columbia. And not only that, but it was the company that developed the satellite mapping system that has been so important, not just for security issues, for things like climate change and mapping what's happening to the sea ice. And they are literally global leaders. And it was going to get gobbled up by the military-industrial complex out of the United States. And of course, many of the workers here no doubt would have lost their jobs. What Canadians had built and designed with our innovation and creativity would have gone to the Americans. And who knows what kind of purpose it would have been put to as well. And who knows whether we would have been able to get access to the images of our North, to know what was going on. And so Peggy made the case, and everybody said this will never happen. There's never been a foreign takeover since Investment Canada was created. After 14,000 of them were approved, never had one been turned down, ever. And the pressure she put on, working with the workers there and building the campaign, for the first time ever in our history, and it's still the only case, we forced the government to say no to that sell-off of a strategic business. And of course, I don't need to tell you how much work Peggy has done working for women's equality in our society on so many different fronts. It's always a priority for her. And there are countless examples of the times she spoke in the House of Commons on all of these issues. Child care, work for equal pay for work of equal value, all of those key issues, a woman's right to choose, and all of this sort of fundamental infrastructure of human rights in our country for women. And nobody knows these issues better than Peggy. I guess the last thing I would say is that she has, since the election, it would have been easy for her perhaps to say, oh well, you know, I'm going to pack it in. To the contrary, she took on the job of becoming our national president of our party for the whole country. And I've got to tell you, that's something I really appreciate, because it means that she and I get to work together just about as closely as we did when she was a member of our caucus. She has a key say and role in the decisions made by our party even today, even though it's a little bit more behind the scenes. But I'll tell you one thing, I'd be happy to give her up as president of our party if I could have her back as a member of Parliament. And that's your job. And I need you to get out there and do it. And as we say in Quebec, lâche pas. Lâche pas. Can you all say that? Lâche pas. Lâche pas. Lâche pas. Lâche pas. Okay, let's welcome our next MP, Peggy Nash.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. You know, Jack's going from one end of the country to the other, and it really, we're so appreciative that you could be with us today at what is a very, very important community festival in Bloor West Village, the Ukrainian festival, and I could tell as we were walking along during the parade how impressed people were. You could really feel it, the applause, and people say, oh, that's him, that's Jack Layton. And maybe you get that a lot as leader, but we don't get to see that all the time here in Parkdale High Park, and so we were very, very appreciative that you came today, and the response that the crowd gave us was wonderful. You know, I was... a couple of things, you know, being in this Legion, I have a real fondness for this Legion. My dad joined the Navy here in, yours too, when he finished high school at Western Tech. As soon as he could, he came here. This was the Navy Recruiting Center, and then they put them up in barracks here at the CNE before shipping them out. And he always had a real affection for this Legion, and I have as well, and I have to say that the folks here at the Legion have always been incredibly welcoming and supportive and encouraging, and so it's very fitting that we're all here today with some folks from the Legion, and that they've welcomed us here to be back with them. And I was thinking too, when Sherry was speaking, we have of course, Sherry as our MPP, and so this is what we had at a given point in time. We had me as MP, Sherry as MPP, and Irene Atkinson as the school trustee, and Gord, and David Miller, and now we have Sarah Doucette, who's going to be the next councillor for Ward. So the way I tend to view this is it's that the gals really kick butt here, and the NDP really kicks butt here, and we encourage the guys to get involved. We want them involved, but we do appreciate that here we can also elect women, and my experience in the House of